Public are welcome to address the board on subjects both on and off the agenda. Public comment on individual items will be allowed at the time an agenda item is discussed and is limited to 3 minutes per person. Individuals wishing to address the board under public comment are welcome to do so per the instructions above. Captain Cromer, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Certainly. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Mendocino County retirement meeting for June 18th, 2025 is called to order at 8:39. Roll call, Judy, please.
Mr. Kelly, Ms. Cavanis, Mr. Shoemaker, and Mr. Land are all absent. Mr. Haschak?
Here.
Mr. Cromer?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Swope?
Here.
Ms. Cubison?
Here.
Thank you.
And for the record, we have a quorum, right?
We have 5.
All right.
And also for the record, since there are the absences, I am allowed to vote in the.
Yes, Mr. Swope will be our acting chair today, and he is also going to be able to vote.
Is there any public expression not on any item not on the agenda?
There is no public comment.
Okay. We will now move to closed session. We have Jeff here, so.
Okay.
Jeff, is there anything we need to say to enter into closed session?
You should just read.
3 agenda items, please, into the record.
Session to discuss A, service disconnected disability application, Bonnie Jean Miller, Court Clerk 5, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B. B, service connected disability application, Luis Espinoza, Sheriff Sergeant, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B. And then public employee performance evaluation, Executive Director, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. Jeff, would you report out?
Sure. So the board met in closed session to discuss 3 items, and the board voted unanimously in the Bonnie Miller case and in the Luis Espinoza case to grant service-connected disability retirements. On the 3rd item, the board met and discussed the performance evaluation of the executive director, and no reportable action was taken.
Thank you, Jeff. Then I guess we move to board policy review, and wish you a good rest of your vacation if you are heading out.
Thanks. I'm going to stay for the next item.
Doris?
Yeah, Chair Swope, we have multiple policies brought forth. Many of them are just up for review with no substantial changes. There are 3 policies that do include a number of substantial changes. They are highlighted in the memo. The communication strategy, not particularly controversial. Some new language was added to incorporate the board's guiding principles from the strategic plan and the success measures to align with the current metrics. The conflict of interest policy does have a substantial change to it regarding the conflict of interest code. And if you have questions regarding that, I'll let Jeff jump in on that one. And the error correction policy includes a change that would grant the executive director a little more flexibility as far as the delegated authority. Currently, the policy permits the executive director to establish payment agreements of up to $10,000 without board approval. The changes would allow the executive director to waive amounts up to $1,000 in the case of financial hardship demonstrated by the member for an amount owed to the system. So if you have any questions regarding any of the policies, I'd be happy to answer them now. I didn't mention that on the conflict of interest code, the most significant change was the addition of board counsel and fiduciary counsel and the system's actuary as parties that are designated to will be required to file Form 700 with the retirement system.
Mr. Chairman, motion to adopt the policies as presented by the executive director or by staff.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
Discussion.
Any discussion beyond what has occurred?
So, in the communication policy, I mean, it's a really tight policy. But then there's this one section where it opens, the sky is not falling. And I really find that to be a very unprofessional section. And it's, it's certainly, for those of us who've been around the issue, I understand what it's meaning, but it's funny that it's just this.
We have both a communication policy and a communication strategy. It's the communication strategy that's actually was updated.
Right. That's. I'm sorry.
And is that in the strategy?
Yeah, it is. It is.
And let me find that page.
It's the top of page 3.
Top of page 3. You're correct, and that wasn't amended. It was in the previous version. We can certainly strike that and just start with while M. Sarah.
Right.
Or any other language changes that the board would like to see.
Right. Yeah, I think that would be great. That part dropped out. It has the same message.
I'd be happy to strike that from the version that gets posted to the website as the adopted version based on board direction.
Is the motion amended that way?
I would amend the motion to add from as presented to as
Amended.
amended.
Second.
Yeah, I agree.
Any more discussion?
Thank you.
I guess let's call for the vote.
All right, Mr. Haschak,
Aye.
Mr. Cromer,
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker,
Aye.
Ms. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Swope,
Aye.
Ms. Kevison,
Aye.
approved.
Thank you.
Any public comment?
I'll see you all, excuse me,
Aye.
Hi,
I'm a little late for public comment, but I'll see y'all next month. Doris, if anything comes up, you know how to reach me. I'll jump back.
all right.
Yeah, and
Bye.
we'll probably-
Well, Jeff, wherever you are.
There does not appear to be any public comment.
Okay, now we are moving to the consent agenda. Are there any matters that the board wishes to pull for separate discussion for the consent agenda?
Move approval?
Um,
Yeah, approved by unanimous consent.
And then we actually public comment for,
Yeah, you can ask for public comment and then
then have the vote.
we actually don't need it. It'll just say all matters on the consent agenda.
So there is no public comment.
All right, so then let's,
Just read this.
all matters on the consent agenda are to be approved by one action without discussion unless a board member requests separate action on a specific item. So let's call for the vote then.
Seeing none, it's approved.
Oh, seeing none.
Yeah, approved by unanimous consent.
Okay. And now we move to the historical benefit review project status report and project updates. Doris?
Thank you, Chair Swope. This report essentially closes out the project. There are a couple of items highlighted in yellow in the month of May that provided an option for the member to elect to complete a purchase that was incorrect when they initially completed it or attempted to. So those amounts will be reported next month once we determine the direction the member wishes to pursue as far as the correction. But this is essentially the end of the project. Every account that had been flagged for review had been reviewed and reported here.
You're here.
Thank you, Doris.
Yeah. Thank everybody.
Do we have any board member discussion on this?
Any negative noise out there?
We have a couple of folks who have received notices within the last couple of months who may look into appeal under the rights that they have under our error correction policy and administrative appeals policies. I'm waiting for additional information from the member as whether or not they would like to pursue it.
But as far as the IRS is concerned, it's
Yes.
that. Yeah.
If I can, Chair, I would just like to highlight the dedication and efforts of the staff that did the actual work here, because it felt like a never-ending process, and I know we wouldn't be here today without the efforts of all those involved that actually did the work and did the corrections and did the recalculations and the confirmations and worked with IRS and worked with council. I mean, this was an extremely tedious process that even in I think 6 years on the board, it had started before I got on the board. And again, I'm not going to be dense and expect that every member that may have been impacted by this project to agree with the decisions that were made, but hopefully they respect and understand the reasoning as to why these determinations were made.
Staff spent the better part of 7 years working on that, and Judy, Nora, and Katie really did all the heavy lifting with this project, and it wouldn't have been completed without their efforts.
Everybody needs a leader, though, Doris. So thank you. Incredible work, and I was here for all of it. I know, Doris, you inherited when you walked in the door. So nice to put it to bed.
And
Actually.
I would like to just make a personal comment. I'm glad that I got the opportunity to opt to another choice of that was not given me when I initially had retired. So I appreciate that. And do we have any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Okay, then we can move to investment matters. Robert?
Trustees, you have the monthly investment report before you. I wanted to point out a couple items on page 2. You can see some of the transactions that we completed. We've completely moved to the new international structure as of June 6th. So from April 29th through June 6th, we did the transition. And you can see that the $10.7 million on the balance sheet as a pending trade, that happened on the second day of the month, so right after the markets opened. I also want to point out on page 4, you'll see that the performance for the international equities was pretty good, and it was higher than all of the managers in that section of the portfolio as a whole, right? And part of the reason for that is because the managers that we transitioned away from ended up performing quite well while we were transitioning out of them. So that's part of the reason why that number is, the 5.59 is higher than all the other manager returns for that period. Secondly, I wanted to give a quick brief update on some follow-up that I did regarding real estate and Barings. So after the last meeting, there was a comment about potentially Sarah being, quote, the last rat on the ship. And, I know Trustee Land was voicing his concerns, but that comment, sort of made me wonder about the ships in general, not necessarily Barings specifically, but the ship, the core real estate investments of the other funds within California. And so I went out and I looked at Sonoma, Marin, Tulare, Imperial, Stanislaus, Merced, and San Joaquin to sort of look and see what they've been doing and how they're positioned. 3 of those funds, Marin, Stanislaus, and Tulare, they're currently overweight slightly. 3 of them are underweight. So including us, it's about 50-50 people over target versus not target. Some of the interesting things that I saw when I reviewed those holdings is that there was some overlap in managers. So that sort of made me, think about the time period of the early 2000s, maybe mid 2000s before the GFC. And to me, it sort of looks like there was potentially strong funds at that time, and there was a lot of recommendations that were very similar. So, for instance, Sonoma, Marin, Merced all have investments in a particular fund that's actually been performing worse in terms of performance and in terms of the contribution queue. So one of the things that was a concern for Trustee Land was seeing the 31% contribution queue, redemption queue, my apologies, redemption queue, the 31% redemption queue for Barings. And while that does sound high, and it is relatively high to, a 13% average for the other Odyssey funds, Sonoma, Marin, and Merced all have significant investments in the UBS Trumbull Property Fund. That particular fund has a 48% redemption queue as of today, as of March quarter. None of those firms are part of that contribution queue today. So I wanted to point that out. That doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't consider getting into the contribution queue.
Or redemption queue.
Or redemption queue, I'm sorry, I keep saying contribution queue, right? The redemption queue. But the point is that there's a large queue in these other funds that have more money invested, and they're not necessarily determining that they need to jump ship. Tulare and San Joaquin and Mendocino County, all three of us have investments in the REEF fund and have for a long time. So that's sort of another interesting factor. And there's also a newer value add real estate fund that Tulare, Imperial, and Stanislaus all invest in, which I thought was very interesting, the American Realty Strategic Value Fund. So all that's to say that other funds appear to be holding their ground, which, for us, we would be able to potentially transition without entering the contribution queue. That's pretty fortunate. I was at redemption queue. That's a good thing, because it really is my opinion and view that trying to get out of those investments now, it would be a bad timing move, 100% bad. My opinion, we just need to sort of hold on for the next 2 years, let the market sort of settle down, and potentially make that decision in the near future, not next quarter. So, as far as the number of investors in the funds, while I don't want to mention any specific numbers, what I do want to mention is in terms of the Bearing Fund, today that net asset value, $1.9 billion, is basically where it was in 2013. And in terms of the number of investors in the fund, it's slightly above the number of investors. So really that total fund is almost, in terms of size and the number of investors in the fund, it's pretty much back to where it was in 2013. So that doesn't mean that it's gone down or lost accounts or that the ship is sinking. That just means that it's sort of restabilized at a level that it was at when MSERA invested. The REEF investment has steadily gained investors over time, but a large part of those recent increases have been to the fund restructure in 2013. Some of the trustees might remember that the fund restructured in 2023, the fund restructured in 2023. And as part of that restructure, we ended up having to sell units of the fund to pay for some of the management fees. The reason that REEF wanted to do that restructure at the time was because they had a flat fee for every single investor in the fee, 95 basis points. Didn't matter how much money you had in it. And that was causing them to have issues with raising funds because they were not seen in the market as competitive. And so once they made that change, because now larger investors pay less than 95 basis points, right? We haven't grown that much. We don't have a large enough investment to have a lower fee, but other large investors got a fee break. And so part of that restructure was their efforts to raise additional funds, which they've done, and that's accounting for the additional gain in investors in the account. Finally, in terms of the contribution queue for both of the funds, Bearings from 2017.
Contribution.
Redemption queue. I don't know why I keep saying that. The redemption queue for bearings from 2017 to 22 averaged about 5%. Sometimes it was a little lower, sometimes it was a little above, but it was about 5% NAV, and that was consistent. As we know today, it's sort of grown up to this 31%, and they're working on paying it down. But I think the important part is that to know that in the recent period before rates were increased, that redemption was about 5%. As far as REEF goes, REEF has had about half the redemption queue. So REEF has averaged about 2.5%. Again, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but about 2.5% of its net asset value.
What's the current?
It's currently at about 10.5% in the March quarter. So it's gone up significantly for the fund. It's about average when you look at the Odyssey funds, that 10.5%. That's about where everybody's at. There are some outliers in the 30 or the almost 50% for the UBS fund. So I just wanted to give you that context. We may end up updating a part of the real estate update to include some of that information if trustees are interested in investor counts or looking at the history of the contribution queue.
Redemption queue.
Redemption queue.
And Callan's going to be in next month with more information on the real estate. Is that right? Or is it the month after?
No. Thank you for mentioning that. We'll be bringing back findings at the August meeting.
Sorry.
And that would be essentially recommendations possibly for potential manager interviews.
I appreciate your giving us that context and looking into it for us. Helpful. Thank you.
Great.
Any other discussion? Any public comment?
There is none.
Okay, then we will move to item 6, pensionable determination of longevity pay code for Russian River Cemetery District.
Thank you, Chair Swope. The Russian River Cemetery District is adding a new pay type of longevity. Similar to longevity with the court and with the county, it would be pensionable for both the legacy members and the PEPRA members. All employees would be subject to receiving it based on years of service. So there are 2 resolutions that would need a motion to adopt. We'll get your signature after. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
All right, any other discussion, comments? Then I guess we'll have the vote, please.
Mr. Haschak?
Aye.
Mr. Cromer?
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Swope?
Aye.
Ms. Cubison?
Aye.
Approved.
And then I guess we move to the administrative report.
Yes.
Doris?
In this month's administrative report, I did provide some additional information on locations for the potential offsite in February. If you have any preferences regarding location, I'd like your board input on that now. I also just wanted to mention that I do plan to attend the fall SACRS conference and also the Calipers Administrators Institute in November and September, respectively. One thing of interest might be the update on Assembly Bill 1383, which would have created new pension tiers for safety members who were PEPRA members and also increased the cap in pensionable compensation for PEPRA members who are subject to the compensation limit. That bill did not move forward this year, but it is a 2-year bill, and it will come back next year. Attached to this, I've provided letters from the California Actuarial Advisory Panel, along with a letter from the Sackers Legislative Committee regarding potential cost to systems. While neither organization took a position on the bill, each highlighted areas of concern regarding questions and the potential cost impact of doing so. If you have any questions on that, I'm happy to entertain those.
I'd love to hear the legislative staff comments after reading this analysis by the Sackers actuaries.
Yeah, that letter from the Sackers Legislative Committee has been provided to the House Committee and the representative who was sponsoring the bill. I think it highlights some of the concerns all of the systems have. Sacramento had their actuary work up the analysis of, and so they were able to provide some estimated costs. Their actuary is Siegel Consulting, the same as our own. Siegel created sort of a little worksheet where you can plug in numbers for your own system and kind of get a range of what that impact might be as far as contribution costs and also addition to the unfunded liability. While I have created those numbers, I did not bring them to the meeting today. At this point, will be interested to see what happens next year when the legislative season opens.
Any further discussion?
I'd like to see us go with Hopland, the research center, kind of middle of the road, but it still isn't sitting right here in town, has catering available.
Does Hopland
Hopland does not have catering.
Excuse me, a
Facility.
kitchen available for catering.
It does have a kitchen available. I believe last time they used Hopland, they were able to
Bring in sandwiches.
pick up or lunch and have it
Yeah.
brought in. I wasn't here back then, so.
It was catered. That caterer's no longer in business, so
Okay.
finding a caterer is going to be difficult.
But we might be able to pick up sandwiches or something and bring them in. There is a kitchen there where we can stage things, but I'm happy to take any other preferences.
That's it.
We're talking about the venue for the.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, just looking at the prices and everything, it seems like the Behavioral Health Training Center is the cheapest by far. And there is a little bench outside. I was one who said it doesn't have any windows, but, when we did the board workshop there in January for 2 days, and we had, I think, the little catering deli in Redwood Valley bring in sandwiches, and that seemed to be pretty good and certainly cheap and local.
Right, there's a market across the street that has a full service deli that can do salads and sandwiches.
You're not going to offer an
I am
opinion,
not
Quincy,
gonna
because I know
offer
you're not
opinion,
going to be
but-
here.
Go where you would like.
I have no preference.
The
I'm-
Hopland Center's beautiful, yeah.
Relatively sure someone could tell me how to get to Hopland, but I'm not familiar with the area.
You would be surprised. It's a lovely place. But anyway, I'm not wedded to it. Having taught for 30 years at Ukiah High School, didn't have any windows at that point. I have an aversion to a meeting like that, but I will go along with anything
Yeah,
for the good of the board.
I brought up the Ag Center, I think.
I'm sorry, I didn't
I
hear
think I
you.
originally brought up the Ag Center, and I think it's a good place to do it.
The Ag Center, Hopland, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So since we have some competing venues, do we really have strong preferences?
I just need
I just think we need
the board to come to some sort of consensus to give me direction.
Exactly.
So
I mean, personally, I think that 3 of them are almost comparable in terms of price, and it's whether it's effort and how much that's going to take on staff to pull it off. So, I mean, I understand we're looking at price, but at the Hopland, we have the fee for the building plus the fee for the kitchen, which means we're actually about the same as if we use the conference center or if we use Coyote Valley. So those, all prices seem to be the same. I honestly don't really care, other than the fact that it appears there's catering available at 2 of those locations. So I don't know what the pricing is like for Coyote Valley for catering, but
They didn't get back to me. They were a little slow. And when someone finally did get back to me, they couldn't answer the catering question, so they just gave me the room rates. But I'm sure it just depends on what we would want to order. I had the catering costs for the conference center only because they posted a price sheet on their website, but I didn't actually speak with anybody there. I just got the information from their website. Hopefully it's up to date as far as the meeting room cost and the, I can go anywhere, so.
from my perspective is, imagine yourself at that time of year and what you would be most comfortable with in terms of the venue.
And how long is the workshop gonna be? Or
It's going to be pretty much an all-day event. It'll start in the maybe 9. Is that what we usually do? Like 9 and end by 4.
It's, Hopland's about, that Hopland Center is about a 30-minute drive from Ukiah, approximately. I think
Yeah.
it is about that far out. If it's raining.
So we have the choice of the Hopland Center or the Behavioral Health Center. What's really now the decision for direction?
It doesn't have to be decided today if you want to think on it some more. I just wanted to bring back some information since last time we talked about the offsite and set the date. And we had a brief discussion about venues. I wanted to just update the board on that, but it's still early. Last time I talked to all these places, they said February was wide open. So, you know, we can certainly look into it further if there's anything the board would like, or if you want to make a decision today, I'm happy to take that direction.
Let it ride for the meeting.
Let's kick it to Alex.
Fine.
Okay. Any public comment?
There is none.
I guess then we move to general board discussion.
And actually, before we jump into comments by trustees, I did want to mention that we will be running elections for both seat 2, which is currently held by Chair Land, and also our safety and/or safety alternate seats. So we will be bringing back next month our board election policy to make some updates now that we've have a policy and we've used it for 2 or 3 elections. We realize there's some things in it that are overly burdensome and we'd like to streamline, so we'll bring that back next month, but we will be bringing forth a timeline for the election.
Ooh, yes.
And now, general board.
Okay, will have a question more for, excuse me, Robert. For our advisors, they at times go to conferences or particular continuing education trainings. You know my background. I'm wondering if you could sort of ask some of them what some of those quant type of trainings, or more focused on like optimization, actually in the mechanics of some of this stuff.
Well, I'll just say, you know, it's probably not that technical. I mean, you know, it takes so much technical work to get some of those certifications that once you get it, it's really just sitting and listening to people talk. You know, it's not actually doing any work. I mean,
As far as conferences.
yeah, I mean,
But I mean, do they give sort of the equivalent to academic papers in the?
no. I mean, the CFA, they do offer technical papers, so you can absolutely go out there and read those, and you can get way into the weeds on how you might, you know, calculate some metric. But as far as continuing education credits, you know, it's very high level. You know, you probably have seen some of the GFOA stuff. It's relatively simple, most of those credits. You know, it's more about staying within knowledge of the field and being aware. You know, so the CFA might be being aware of new developments within a certain segment of the investment industry, as opposed to getting into the details of, you know, how parts of that industry calculate certain metrics. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Any other comments, questions?
I will be absent from next month,
Duly noted.
attempting to take a vacation.
Enjoy your time away.
Good luck.
Turn your phone
Enjoy
off.
your-
I'm not very good at that, but I'll try.
Just misplace it.
And then I guess that, would we still ask for public comments on this?
There is no public comment.
Then I will, unless there's some real objection, move for the adjournment and notice of the next Board of Retirement meeting. The next Board of Retirement meeting will be held in the Mendocino County Employees Retirement Association Boardroom, 625B Kings Court, Ukiah, on Wednesday, July 16th, 2025 at 8:30 a.m. The meeting is adjourned at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, good job, Norm.
Thank you.
You're no longer a virgin.